These are the Algebra 2 1.3 notes that will cover examples 1 and 2. Before we begin with our example, we need to cover a couple forms of a line that we learned back in Algebra 1. Okay, so slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Remember that m represents the slope and b represents the y-intercept. Okay, we also learned point slope form. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So when point slope form is a better format to use than slope intercept form is when you have exactly what it sounds like, a point and a slope. So if you have a slope and a y-intercept, then slope intercept is the better form to use. Now, if you only have 2 points, you can always find your slope by using the slope formula. Remember, the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And you just need 2 points that the line goes through. All right, example 1 says, the graph shows the distance asteroid 2019 GC6 travels in x seconds. Write an equation of the line and interpret the slope. Okay, so an equation of the line, we can see that it has this point it goes through, which is 621, and it also appears to go through 0, 0. This point right here is where it begins. So if we want to start by finding an equation for this, we have a y-intercept, so probably slope-intercept form would be the easier form to use, which remember is y equals mx plus b. So to start with, to find the slope, you have the 2 points, 0, 0, and 621. And so you can use the format, which is y2 minus y1. So if you want, you can label your points x1, y1, x2, y2. So you're going to do 21 minus 0 over x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 0. All right, you get 21 over 6, which is 3.5. So then you knew your y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, was at 0, 0. So that means your b value is 0. This is enough to write the equation of your line. Your slope is 3.5, so it's 3.5x. And you can put that plus 0, but you really don't have to. So that is writing the equation of the line. Now, anytime it says to interpret, it means tell what that means in this problem. So if we're interpreting the slope, we're telling the meaning in this problem. What I like to do to interpret the slope is I like to think of it as a fraction. So you can either think of it as the 21 over 6, or that would simplify also to 7 over 2, or you can think of it as just straight up 3.5. So if you want to think it as 3.5, then think of it just for a second as 3.5 over 1. All right, so if you think of it as 3.5 over 1, the top number was found by subtracting the y's. So think about on the y-axis. If you look at the y-axis right here, that was distance in miles. So the top number of the slope is distance in miles. So you're going to think of it as 3.5 miles. And the bottom number, this 1, is how we found that is by taking x2 minus x1. So that goes with the x-axis, which is time in seconds. All right, and so if we think about this as 3.5, and that is miles, and the bottom was in seconds, then what the slope means if we interpret it, which means tell what it represents in this problem, is the asteroid travels 3.5 miles every 1 second. So like I said, how I interpret things is I think of them like a fraction, and then the top part of the fraction of the slope is the y-axis, because you find it by doing y2 minus y1. The bottom number of the fraction, you look at the label on the x-axis because it's x2 minus x1, and then you write a statement using that as a rate. Okay, there was a second part to this problem. It says the asteroid came within 136,000 miles of the Earth in April of 2018. How long did it take the asteroid to travel that distance? Right, so we think about the variables, and so y, or the y-axis, remember, was the distance in miles, while the x-axis was the time, and it was in seconds. So it's telling you 136,000 miles, so that means it is giving you what y is, and it's asking you how long, so that means you're looking for x. So what you can do is you can take the equation we just wrote, but plug 136,000 in for y, and so you have 136,000 equals 3.5x, and then just solve for x. So divide by 3.5, and then we get 38,857. Now keep in mind, that's in seconds, and that really isn't, particularly reasonable. So one thing you can do is you can try to change that into hours, which would be just something that made a lot more sense. So you can sit here and you can think about the fact we learned how to change rates in Algebra 1 so that there are 60 seconds in 1 minute, and there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So if you do this, remember we learned to change rates in Algebra 1, so like these seconds, because you have seconds on top and seconds on bottom, that will cancel out, and then minutes on top and minutes on bottom, and you'll be left in hours. So what this tells me to do is it tells me to take the 38,857, divide it by 60, and then again divide by 60, and we're going to get roughly 11 hours. So basically it took about 11 hours for the asteroid to travel the 136,000 miles from the Earth. Okay, so example 2 says 2 prom venues charge a rental fee plus a fee per student. So like the rental fee is just a flat fee for the facility, and then the fee per student increases based on how many students come. Okay, the table is showing Lakeside Inn. So when we're talking about Lakeside Inn, that's the numbers from this table. The total cost y in dollars. So right there they're telling us that y is the total cost, and that includes the price per student plus the rental fee. And then x is the number of students. So that's for both of our equations. Okay, so the total cost in dollars for X number of students at Sunview Resort is represented by the equations. The Sunview Resort is this equation right here. It says which venue charges less per student. Okay, so first of all, at Sunview, let's just jot this down. It was 10x plus 600. So this fee, the slope, is the fee per student, because it changes based on how many students you have. So X is the number of students. As X increases, it goes up by $10 for every student. Then the $600 is just the flat fee, so that would just be the rental fee, because it does not have a variable by it, so that means it's just like a one-time rental fee. Okay, so if we could find the fee per student, which is the slope at Lakeside Inn, then we could compare who was cheaper per student. Now, it doesn't actually matter which ones you do, you just pick 2 points, honestly. So I just picked like this right here, 100, 1500, and then 125, 1800, which if it helps you to label them, just write them separately as points and label the first one x1, y1, and the second one x2, y2. That's just something you can do if it helps you keep everything straight. So to find the slope, we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 1800 minus 1500 is 300. 125 minus 100 is 25. And 300 divided by 25 is 12. That means that the slope is 12. So what it tells me is that Lakeside charges $12 per student, and Sunview Resort charges $10 per student. So therefore Sunview is the cheaper one. Okay, but then it also asked us another question. It says, how many students must attend for the total cost to be the same? So to figure that out, we need to finish writing the equation for Lakeside Inn. So keep in mind that you now have a slope and you have a point. You don't have a y-intercept. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use point slope form to write the equation. So I'm going to use this point x1, y1 right here, and I'm going to use the slope of 12. So it's y minus y1 is 1500 equals slope is 12, and then it's x minus x1 is 100. So now you distribute the 12. So you still have this y minus 1500 over here. You have 12x minus, and then that turns into 1200. And then you get y by itself, so you add the 1500. All right. And where you are right now is you have 12x plus 300. And that's the equation for Lakeside. So when you want to know how many students must attend for the total cost to be the same, that means you're setting them equal to each other. So we're going to set the equation for Lakeside, which is what we just found. It was 12x plus 300. That was Lakeside. And then Sunview was 10x plus 600. So what you're going to do is you're just set them equal to each other and solve for x, and you're finding the point where the two cost the same. So first get your variables to the same side. Always do that first. All right, that gives you 2x plus 300 equals 600. Now isolate the x, meaning get it by itself. So move the 300 over. We're trying to get x all by itself. And you get 2x equals 300. Divide by 2. So you get 150. So what that means is at 150 students, both venues will cost the same. So anytime it asks you to find when something is the same means equal. So you're going to set the two equations equal to each other and you're going to solve.